You're listening to Your Purpose and Business podcast, where we connect you to possibilities. I'm your host, Raquel Walters, a two-time best-selling author, millennial speaker, corporate trainer, advocate, and clinical social worker at heart. Your Purpose and Business podcast will connect you with everyday successful people who will share their impactful stories, insights, challenges, failures, and triumphs on how they're navigating the working world, whether by climbing the 9-to-5 corporate ladder or starting, growing, and scaling their business. So grab your pen and notebook because you'll want to implement the nuggets and tools, strategies shared in every episode. Class is in session. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Your Purpose and Business podcast. I'm your host, Raquel Walters, and I'm here with the lovely Coreen Ketterer. So Coreen likes to say that money isn't everything, but it can certainly be an asset to achieve what you want in life. In 2007, some of her closest family and friends began losing their livelihood. Not until 2012, Corinne became a licensed independent broker at Wilshire Group Financial Services and dove into the world of financial advising. Since earning the Life Underwriter Training Fellow designation in 2016, more and more of her clients kept asking advice on debt reduction and building generational wealth. It didn't take long for her to realize that personal finance coaching was her greater purpose. Hence, Core Money Coaching was formed in 2018. Coreen herself has ridden a roller coaster of financial setbacks and triumphs and believes that learning financial literacy combined with mastering financial wellness contributes to an individual's health and well-being. With the new launch of Millennial Ballher, Coreen and her team aim to empower women and their families with clarity, confidence, control of their money so they can experience full autonomy. She is married with one child living in Willow Glen, San Jose, and during this quarantine, Coreen currently enjoys a quality time with her toddler and husband, meal planning, browsing interior design and architecture online, and hopes to spend the rest of her life advocating against racial injustice and climate change, all while squeezing in travel post-pandemic to at least 30 other countries that she and her family have yet to explore. Coreen, it's a pleasure to have you on my podcast today, Your Purpose and Business podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome, Coreen. So I like to ask every guest that I interview, let's tell us one thing outside of your exceptional bio that you would love to share with us that persons don't necessarily know about you. What would that one thing be?
It's a good question. I would have to say it's more of a tactic of a little mind trick that's helped me. And I want to share this because I feel like it's sort of acted like a detriment or an obstacle in my life. And if I could tell every woman listening, it would be to stop comparing yourself to others. Because I felt like for the longest time that was my kryptonite. And know that you are uniquely you. There's no one else like you. And the moment that you stop comparing yourself to others, because your situation is completely different to someone else's circumstance, it's hard to judge that. So you're competing with yourself, just like I think Beyonce said that in a song or something. But in all honesty, it's that mindset of comparison of other people. So stay in your lane. You're competing with yourself, and that's who you should be worried about. Did I answer your question? I know I changed it last time.
Yes, you did, and it does tie in. So, I think we could all relate, and it will resonate with all of us when we compare a lot, especially in the world of social media. And us millennials growing up in a time such as this, there's a lot of comparison, and it's important to remember that you're running your own race, so to speak. So thank you for that, Coreen. And I wanted to shift gears into our topic of okay, we're millennials and we're multi-passionate and there's a lot going on. A lot of us are misunderstood, especially by the older generation. But for you, Coreen, your bio is so detailed on how it is you were able to, navigate life thus far and becoming a financial advisor, and tell us a little bit about your journey that has led you into this profession, a financial expert.
I want to preface that this was not the field that
Mm,
I was originally going to pursue.
yeah.
So I believe you are a majority of a product of your upbringing, but I don't believe that will dictate what your true destiny will ultimately be.
Mm,
So because of what I experienced, like a lot of families and even individuals can relate to, the Great Recession that transpired in 2007, 2008. My family was a casualty of that. And if it wasn't for that circumstance, but even more so, Raquel, I remember driving home from work. At the time I was living in LA, and I got a phone call from my mom. And this was after the domino effect of the recession. And she called me and she said, I suffered a TIA. And I'm like, what the heck's a TIA? What's a
mm,
TIA?
yeah.
I looked it up, I Googled it, and it stands for a transemic attack. And it's basically a precursor to an actual stroke.
Mm-hmm.
That moment that she told me, I just felt like everything stopped. Nothing else mattered. And I get emotional talking about it. But that very instance, at that point, I could have lost my mom, who was such a beacon and inspiration in my life. And it made me realize that whatever we're going through, it's so much bigger than us. And
Mm,
it really honed in what my purpose is. And what I've realized, I asked myself this question. You can relate to as a fellow entrepreneur. Sometimes we're just so occupied trying to just hustle and get through and trying to be the best person that we fail to take just a second to stop and appreciate everything around us. And at that moment, it just really, I got shook. Like I was like, what am I doing? Like, where am I going? I was lost. And that really put things in perspective for me, just to dial back and to focus on why I am here, and not to sound corny, why I'm put on this earth, but what is my purpose? What am I doing with my life, and how am I making it not just better for myself, but how am I impacting the world and creating larger footprint?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I love that, and again, I mean, I know that throughout this conversation, everything we'll say will resonate with the audience, because I too share that same sentiment, or that sort of hit me at a point where I realized that, okay, am I just gonna be working, until death, or am I gonna try to live, and not just existing? And I can definitely relate to that, especially where our families is concerned, or parents or loved ones is concerned. And sometimes it takes something bad to happen, a health scare, or the loss of a loved one or something, to wake us up, so to speak. And I'm so happy that you shared that with us, that unfortunately that happened to your mom, but it also helps you to put into perspective what it is that you want in your life, and thus that led you onto your pathway of seeking out other opportunities or career path. Am I correct?
Yes,
Y-
and I love how you hit it on the nail about how certain things determine, the next action, the next steps that you'll take in life. And I also want to add another moment where that same week I had an interview for my dream job, right? I wanted to work for National Geographic, and I was
Mm,
given an opportunity to work as a producer. But he told me before I go further, and at the time I was engaged, right? And he said, do you want to work to live or live to work?
mm,
And I was like, huh, what do you mean? He's like, do you want to work to live or live to work? And I had to let that marinate for a second. He's like, because I'll be honest with you, like, this is a path that will take you far in your career, but you'll be on the road 10, maybe 11 months. You won't see your family. And then I asked myself, the question I always said was, what is my dream career? But that was wrong. I had to look at it a different way. It was, what's the life that I wanted to create for myself? If I was 21, no problem. But at that point in my life where I was heading closer to my 30s, I've realized, I'm looking at the bigger picture here, not just the next year or two, but really what is my future going to be? And it really, from that point on, like you said, with my mom's health scare and that question that he imposed upon me, it was clear. I didn't know exactly what I want to do that very second, but I knew what turn I needed to take that
Mm-hmm.
will help me at least open my mind and navigate to where I want to be.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's amazing because even, as your friend Corinne, I didn't know that. And thank you so much for sharing because oftentimes we go through life, our 20s are supposed to be our best years. And, if you buy into that cliche, and then the 30s is where you start to get grounded and more focused on probably family, more stability, right?
Mhm.
And so, it's a blessing too that person was able to say, hey, I see that you're young and I just really want you to think about this before you make a decision, right? A life changing decision, and make sure that is for you. And you were able to do that. What would you say though to a young millennial, or anyone, doesn't necessarily have to be a millennial,
Mhm.
who is sort of faced with a lot of uncertainty, a lot of confusion in terms of the direction they want their life to go in? So that could look like career, that could be
Mhm.
finances, that could be relationship, right? Spiritually, health wise. But for you, what was that that thing for you,
That aha
the
moment.
aha moment, so to speak? Yeah, Oprah talks about that aha moment to say, you know what, Corinne, this is what I want and this is what I don't want. And so let me just focus on this. Like, what was that moment for you, if you can recall that and share that with us?
See, I would say it's a culmination of events. But if I were to address this to millennials, I'd say, especially those that haven't turned, like, I want to preface, like, even though I'm in my 30s now, like, that's still
Yeah.
young.
Yeah.
So what we cannot control is time.
Right.
And I'd say to every millennial, especially every millennial woman out there, is that take advantage of your youth. Even if you don't know what it is that you want right now, whether it's a dream career, whether it's your dream partner, whatever it is, it's better that you try and put yourself out there than wonder. You don't want to be 40 or 50 and being like, huh, maybe I should have done this. You'll live life with remorse and resentment. And that, in my personal opinion, can sometimes be worse than suffering some sort of health attack or scare, because mentally it's eating you up inside. So I would just say, try, even if you have an inkling for something, even if you're not 100% sure, just jump in and do it. Because for the longest time, I wish someone told me this, is that I grew up being afraid to fail. But if you look at every successful entrepreneur out there, they failed millions of times before they landed on that aha moment, before they landed on that dream ticket that really changed their life. So
Right.
I would say that is just really put yourself out there, get your feet wet and try, because it's better to fail than regret later on in life when you're old, sitting there with your 9 cats. Man, it's too late. Because let me tell you, there is such a thing. People say, "Oh, it's never too late." That's BS.
Hmm.
There is a point where it becomes too late. And I don't want anyone here listening, and for all the millennials out there, to think that moment has to be determined at that point. It's, you can change it. You have time still.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So shifting gears a little bit, Corrine, I know that you're into financial advising, and I know that you are helping your clients to create that bridge, so to speak, towards their financial, wellness, freedom, generational wealth. There's so many terms, but tell us how it is that you help persons, get financially ready to prepare for their future. And I know that you're an expert with working with millennials. Tell us how it is that we could all get started in securing our financial futures.
So with my practice over time, I've done a lot of trial and error. And I believe what sets me apart from your typical financial advisor is that I have a strong emphasis on financial wellness.
Mm.
It's very much tied into your health and wellness, right? So when we approach money, we look at a different angle. Like you, Raquel, you're very much into being healthy and having a fitness routine. I apply that same methodology with money. You have to have a routine, because if you don't, just like with any relationship that you want to better with yourself or someone else, it won't be improved.
Right.
So strategically, that's what I go into, treating money as if it's just as important, because it is. It's a relationship that you have with money. And the way that I dive into is with my new program that I'm going to launch, pretty soon, I want to focus on a very customized design in which we're tapping into your consciousness and we're aligning your values with your goals, with your money, with your overall life. Because with anything, we all have lofty dreams out there, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's just buying our first home or becoming, the next Oprah or billionaire, whatever it may be. I really feel having that solid foundation, these pillars of, like you mentioned, what you're so heavily focused upon about your purpose, but having clarity on not just your goals, but what is it that you really want to accomplish? What is your why? Because you could have X, Y, and Z, but if you don't know what you're doing it for, what's the point? What's the end game?
Mm-hmm.
So really tapping into aligning those values and how every single decision that you make is tied in with that and how it affects your behavior and also how it will affect your future decisions.
Right.
So I know we just dived in and got a little deep there.
Yeah.
But because there's so many advisors and there's a reason why this industry is thriving. But I think as a millennial woman, especially as a millennial woman of color,
Mm-hmm.
I had to think of a different approach because it's really relevant. And especially with all these changes that are happening, it's like, how are you going to thrive and last in the long
Right.
run as opposed
Right.
to temporarily speaking?
So, Corinne, you said a lot there, and it is important to align your values and know your money. Put an emphasis and a focus on money, especially for us minority millennials. We were never really taught, many of us, how it is to manage your money, how to properly invest and budget, and all these things. So for you, what would be a first steps, like 1 to 2 or 3 steps that you would lend to us for millennials trying to make sure that they're setting themselves up for a better financial future?
Okay. All right. Thank you. So the first one I would have to say, you got to track your money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't know what you're working with, it's going to be confusing as far as how to level up. So tracking your money, whether it's using mobile apps like Personal Capital or Mint, whether it's your customized template or budget that you have, or even your own Excel spreadsheet, you have to track your money. And I would say even having a little date with yourself, or if you're in a relationship, just sit down at least once a month and open your accounts. It takes like 5 minutes. Just see what you got in your checking, what you have currently in your retirement accounts, or if you have other investment brokerage accounts. Take a look at that and see what you currently have. It's almost like, I would say, really close to going to the doctors and having your checkup. You have an annual checkup with
Right.
the doctor. Well, this is a monthly checkup.
Yeah, love it.
Because as you know, entrepreneurs, especially those that have a side hustle in addition to their 9 to 5, the income can fluctuate from month to month.
Mm-hmm.
And so besides tracking your money, secondly would be having a emergency fund. So people always talk about, and I know Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman is big on crushing debt. Don't get me wrong. Yes, it is hard to level up in your life if you have a lot of debt that's holding you down. But at the same time, if you have student loans at a low rate, especially if you got a federal loan, and it might take you 20, 30 years, like that's not to say that you can't start investing. That's not to say that you can't start saving, because the time value of money. I talked about being millennials, and what our one advantage is that we're young. So we can play in the market a little bit because we have that time horizon. So I would say building an emergency fund of at least 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses. So for example, if you live off 5,000 in 1 month, that I would recommend at least 15,000. That's about 3 months, or 30,000, right? And a high yield savings account that's on average now getting returns of 1 to 2%, right? Mm-hmm. And you can find that online, other resources. Those are one of the strategies that I talk about in my program and in my business.
Yes.
And I would say, thirdly, never rely on one income.
Oh, preach, girl. Say that again.
Never rely on one income, right?
Yes.
especially now we've seen it, company loyalty. Like, how many millennials especially do you know has been in a company for longer than 10 years?
Mm.
Cricket.
I don't know one. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's honest. It's so funny. I had this conversation with my friend the other day, and she
Yeah.
hasn't even been in one company for more than 5 years.
Mm-hmm. On average, my millennial friends have been there 2 to 3 years on
See?
average, and then they move on and get better positions.
That's right, right? Especially if the company you feel there's no growth
Right.
there. I mean, you got to look out for yourself, and some people may think of it as selfish, but I mean, if you're looking at everything that's happening today, I mean, when companies lay off people, when right now with the stimulus packages, we
Right.
have over 40 million people that are unemployed.
Unemployed.
You
Yeah.
think every company is going to worry about every single employee? There's no guarantee. And I think that's another thing that we have to compare to the previous generation is that uh, gainful employment, it was a different time back then.
Right.
Now we have so many factors like, hello, you're living and breathing in it, COVID-19,
Right.
and the ongoing systemic racism and other injustice that really affects our country
Right.
and our world as a whole.
Right. Right.
So, whether it's doing small projects, you could get involved in the gig economy. If you're good at writing, or maybe you're crafty, set up an Etsy shop, set
Mm-hmm.
up a drop shipping, site. There's so many different ways to make
So many.
income. You don't need to be perfect at it, but if you have the know-how and you have that grit, just start it up, because the company at the end of the day, you can't depend on them for anything. And like you
Right.
said, you just never know. You could be the best employee and given results, but one day they just might not be able to afford to pay that salary anymore and provide
Right.
those benefits for you. So
Right.
you got
And
to
it's
look
a
out for
business.
you.
And like I always say, it's a business at the end of the day. So the company heads are always gonna look out for their bottom line. And if they see that,
Definitely.
they're going way above budget, they're gonna start laying people off.
Mhm.
And even in this pandemic has showed us a lot too, that it is not safe to rely on just one income. There are many persons that have high-end jobs or even high-end businesses, and unfortunately, because they weren't building out different streams of income,
Mhm.
unfortunately they lost everything. And so if anything, to rebuild, we should all focus on, okay, what am I good at? How can I use my gifts? And this is what I teach my clients. How can I use what I know, my knowledge, and turn it into multiple income streams, and do proper investment so that we have different things coming in, money coming in from all different angles. And it was, Warren Buffett, right, who said, back then we should have 7 income streams.
Mhm.
And my belief is we should have more than 7. I mean, obviously I'm no Warren Buffett yet, but I believe that we need to have more. But of course, you start out with 1, 2, 3, and you slowly climb your way up. So for you, Coreen, I know you touch into investments when you're working with your clients. So if you could give us any information or advice on, what would you say to your clients when they're new to investing, or how they can make their money work for them.
So I'll give you a couple of free resources,
Hmm.
especially if you're a newbie at this. Is Investopedia.com. So for
Hmm.
someone that's new out there, they have a free newsletter. I'm actually subscribed to it, and they give articles pertaining to personal finance, but especially heavily upon investing and retirement accounts. So I would say subscribe to those educational letters. They're free. And next, I would say if you're beginning, the first place that you invest, and people dismiss this sometimes, is in your retirement account. So
Hmm.
if I were to ask you with anything, well, I want to get into stocks, I want to do this and that, and you're just like, hold up. First of all, what do you have invested in your retirement?
Right.
So people don't even realize that that's an investment vehicle. So if anyone's starting out, I would say your retirement account, especially if you have a W-2 job, is the first place where you're investing. And then once you have that and you get to a point where you're able to contribute at least up to the company match or even max it out, I would look into index funds and ETFs. I would say it's a little bit of investing 101. If you want to dive deeper, into it, then there's a plethora of resources out there. But for someone just starting, I don't know if you're familiar, like in the personal finance, there's a lot of different movements, and index funds, and even Warren Buffett said that, have long outperformed short-term investing. And there's been some counter arguments about that. But so far, longevity wise, imagine putting something in an account where you're averaging, let's say, 8 to 10% returns. Sure, in the stock market, you can gain a lot higher, but at the same time, one minute you're up, the next you're down. And
Right.
when you're nearing retirement, per se, for example, like our parents' generation, or even our aunts and uncles, and you have majority of your investments in something that's very high risk, and something happens like COVID or the next huge recession, that will
Right.
greatly impact how you're going to be able to live during retirement.
Right.
And as you know, you're in healthcare. I mean, that price just keeps inflating.
Yep.
And for those of us that don't have, for affordable health care, thankfully we still got Obamacare, but prosecutors on that right now. That's very costly in retirement. I mean, unless you're a government employee, like, people don't have that covered. That's paying out of pocket. And the estimate of retirees during their lifetime out of pocket is $250,000, and that's just in addition to what you'll be paying copays.
Right,
So
exactly, which
that's
are
a
very
lot.
high right now. Right, right. And this is even the more reason why building this argument of, having multiple income streams so that you can have that cushion for yourself and for your family down the line. And even for now too, because we never know. A rug could be pulled from under us, a business
Mhm.
could, go bankrupt, or a business could lose a lot of money to the point where it's not able to sustain itself anymore, right? Or somebody could get sick and you need that money. You never know. You could get sick. I could get sick, God forbid. So it's always important to make sure that we are laying down these foundations now and just building upon it, right? We can't be building houses, so to speak, on shaky ground. So
Mhm.
thank you so much for that, Coreen. And I know that you have a lot more to offer us, because I know you work closely with your clients. So tell us a little bit more about your upcoming programs or courses that you have, to share with us.
Awesome. So during this time, while we're adapting to this new normal of ours, I'm actually in the process of launching a online course. And what I mentioned earlier about the program is, it's titled "From Broke to Bankable in 30 Days," and a lot of people will be a little taken back, like 30 days. Like, how am I going to be? It's not. You're not going to be a billionaire or millionaire. Okay, can't guarantee you that. All right, you're just going to refund your money. But my point is, hit it on the nose,
Right.
setting the foundation, having that solid, and aligning your values with your goals, right, determines your behavior and relationship with money. So taking that holistic approach and taking it from more of looking at it, uh, your financial wellness is really much like your health, right?
Right.
You have to take good care of your health if you want to live.
Right.
So I would even equate that. It's the same thing when you're not taking care of yourself, or you're not paying attention that's and you're unhealthy. I would say that's the lines of being broke, right? So we really focus on mindset, but as well as implementing action items that will help propel you. So I do talk about investing there, and I talk about, instead of doing the typical cash flow or budget, and I actually took this from Meet Safety, who's a huge personal finance guru. It's about conscious spending, which I love.
Yeah.
A lot of experts out there say, well, it's because you're spending $5 on coffee, or you're spending money on things that you don't need. But let me tell you this: if that brings you joy,
Joy. Yeah.
Marie Kondo, if that brings you joy, if that makes you happy, getting that $3 coffee at Starbucks or Pete's or wherever, then you do you.
Right.
But if there's other things, like you said, that, for example, let's say you're not a big shopper, you don't need to buy clothes every single month. The grand scheme of things, those little habits won't affect you in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want people to feel like they have to be in deprivation mode,
Right.
or compromising what truly makes them happy. So
Right.
you really need to assess, and we really take a dive deep into that, assess that whole picture, and find out what categories, what aspects in your life that we can tweak or reposition, so you don't have to sacrifice that happiness. Because I
Mhm.
think a lot of people tend to neglect the fact that yes, they have these goals that they want to accomplish, but you need to respect and appreciate the journey,
Yeah. Mhm.
because like you mentioned, you never know what can happen. Something, knock on wood, could happen to me tomorrow after this interview. Who knows?
Mhm.
Right? And
Mhm.
I want to make sure at that point that in your life you made decisions and you're at peace with it. You can go to
Right.
bed because you
Right.
feel whole.
Right, right. Yeah, I totally agree. So how can our listeners get in contact with you, Coreen? How can they, get on your waiting list for your upcoming course? Share with us.
So it's awesome. You mentioned waiting list. I am actually opening cart and doing an early bird special this coming week. So just continue to follow me on Instagram and Facebook. On Instagram, it's at Millennial Baller. And then on Facebook, it's at Cormany Coaching. So we talked about rebranding and we talked about millennials. So the parent
Mhm.
company is still Cormany Coaching.
Yes.
At the same time, I feel with the approach and how it's affecting our society and our generation, I rebranded it as Millennial Baller, right? So
Right.
I'm here to help everyone, but at the same time, I gotta give love out to my millennial women,
Yes.
especially you. So, like I said, thank you for having me on this podcast. I'm learning so much from you, and it's so great to see women killing out there and leveling up in their life. It's so inspiring, and I believe every woman deserves that chance, to live their best life and to master their money, because I don't ever want to feel that, oh, I can't do that because they're limited by money or by other means. No, girl, you can do it. Just get focused on your goals. And like I said, it depends on people's situation. I'm not downplaying, because it would be incorrect of me to say that anyone can do it by just doing A, B, and C.
Mhm.
The point is, you have to first believe in yourself that you can. And if you're willing to take that chance and to listen to people like me or other people in the community, you know you're doing a disservice to yourself if you're not willing to take that leap of faith.
Right.
So just continue to follow me there, and I'll keep posted with posts and other resources and tools. And I have a lot of freebies on link.tree/millennial baller. And so I know a lot of people want to get that free information, and I try to do that on the daily. But I'll keep you posted, because the next coming week I'll have a lot of information regarding the early bird special. And then, of course, though, it will be ongoing, but because there is limited capacity, and I want to really do the best that I can with a small group of women, with my VIPs out there.
Mhm.
I really want that intimate setting, because I think that's the best way for us to learn and get to know each other.
Mhm. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Coreen. And is there anything that you would want to share to us? Any last words, any inspiration, anything that's on your mind?
I feel as women, especially millennial women, we tend to be really hard on ourselves.
Mm.
And this took me 30 plus years, okay? So I'm just telling you, I mentioned earlier about the comparison thing, but right now it's a trying time. It's difficult. It's polarizing. It's unprecedented.
Mhm.
There's a lot. And I don't want you to feel that you're being selfish if you're, not focusing on self-care. Because mental health, I know that's not my area of expertise, but when I talk about financial wellness and aligning these values and goals, mental health is super important. And I'm sure you can attest to that.
Right.
I'd say just really spend time, whether it's journaling, whether it's listening to music, whether it's yoga, whether it's dancing in your room half naked.
Mhm.
You owe it to yourself to really take care of that and make that a priority. Because if you don't, I feel like every choice, your mindset, it's not going to stay on course. And I want every woman, especially every millennial woman, to be able to achieve what they want during their lifetime. And so I'm just saying, every woman out there, take care of yourself, make yourself a priority. And even though if you're a mom, it doesn't matter, it's not selfish, because if you're taking good care of yourself, others, your family, will be in good care too.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So thank you so much, Coreen, for being on Your Purpose and Business podcast. It's a pleasure, and you have dropped many, many gems that I know will help and inspire the millennial generations, everybody actually that can take away from what you have shared with us today. So thank you again for being on here, and guys, as always, be good to yourself, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Bye for now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for listening. If you've loved this episode, let's stay in touch. Head over to raquelwalters.com and subscribe to my email list so that I can send you updates on new episodes, exclusive motivational nuggets, and insider knowledge that's only shared when you join our community. Please don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and leave a review, as I want to know your thoughts about every episode. Follow me on Instagram at Your Purpose and Business Podcast. And remember, your life is beautiful, and this is a part of your journey. So embrace it. Speak to you soon.